The morning they returned from Spain, their key refused to turn in the lock. They assumed it was stuck. They had no idea their daughter, the one they'd always labeled a burden, had sold the house while they were off drinking sangria and quietly plotting how to drain my bank account dry. Surprise, Mom and Dad. The burden just lightened her own load. My name is Rachel Whitmore, and this is the story of how I finally cut loose from parents who never saw me as a child. Only as a retirement plan they could raid whenever their own bad choices caught up with them. I grew up in Brooklinshire, a gritty, working-class neighborhood where everybody knew whose kid was on welfare and whose dad drank his paycheck at the corner bar. Dreaming beyond a factory line or a cashier's till was considered getting above your raising. My father, Walter Whitmore, laid bricks and poured concrete until his spine surrendered. My mother, Helen, answered phones at a dentist's office until she decided that punching a clock was beneath the lifestyle she felt she deserved. From the start, I didn't fit their blueprint, where they pictured a future receptionist or, if I stretched, a nurse. I saw skyscrapers rising from grids, light pouring through glass, spaces that made people feel larger than their problems. I filled every margin of my notebooks with floor plans, dreaming in square footage while my mother griped about the peeling linoleum in our real kitchen. "You live in fairy tale land," Dad would grumble, catching me sketching by flashlight under the covers. "No man wants a girl who thinks she's smarter than everybody else." "She gets that from your mother," Mom would snap, as if imagination were a hereditary crime handed down like Grandma Marjorie's crooked pinky finger. Grandma Marjorie was the only one who got it. A retired high school art teacher with turquoise rings and paint under her fingernails, she slipped me library books on Frank Lloyd Wright and taught me how to draw a perfect elliptical staircase while my parents screamed at reality TV in the next room. "You have magic in these hands, Rachel," she'd whisper, guiding my pencil. "Don't let anyone talk you into throwing it away." When the thick envelope from State University's architecture program arrived, my parents acted like I'd been accepted to clown college. "Who's footing that bill?" Dad barked, crumpling the letter like junk mail. "I am," Grandma Marjorie said from the hallway, calm as sunrise. "Every dime." You could have heard a pin drop on the shag carpet. Mom's face cycled through every shade of fury before landing on bruised plum. "Of course you are," she hissed, always filling her head with nonsense. College was oxygen. 4 years of professors who saw genius instead of ingratitude. I graduated top of my class, interned at a top-tier firm, and slowly built a career my parents dismissed as drawing pictures for rich people. 3 years into my job at Sterling and Lake Design Group, Grandma Marjorie's cancer came back. This time the doctors didn't bother with the word remission. I spent every weekend of her final 6 months in that lavender-scented hospice room, holding her bird-boned hand while she told me about the students who became famous, the murals she never painted, the dreams she buried when Grandpa died young. One afternoon she pressed a key into my palm. "Top drawer of my desk, envelope with your name." Inside was the deed to a shingle-style house on the cliffs of Ellingport, 5 bedrooms, wraparound porch, the Atlantic crashing below like it had somewhere better to be. "It's yours alone," she rasped. "The will is ironclad, your parents get enough to land on their feet, this place is your sanctuary." She died on a Tuesday while I was stuck in a client presentation. My phone buzzed, "Mom," and I knew before I even answered. The will reading was a masterclass in barely leashed rage. My parents sat ramrod straight as the attorney listed bequests. Art supplies to the community center, jewelry to former students, the house to me, and to Walter and Helen Whitmore. $18,000 and a letter that read, "For your own peace elsewhere. The house belongs to Rachel's future." Dad shot up so fast his chair hit the floor. "I'm her son, that house is mine by rights." "The document is unambiguous," the lawyer replied, unmoved. Mom's laugh could have curdled milk. "She left everything to the disappointment." I sat quietly in the corner, stunned by the size of the gift and the size of the target it painted on my back. I moved to Ellingport the next month. The house was better than any rendering I'd ever done. Widow's Walk, heart pine floors, a kitchen that opened straight onto the salt wind. I stripped wallpaper on weekends, refinished floors on my knees, and watched my career climb. Senior architect at 30, 6-figure income, taxes paid without sweating, investments growing, life looked exactly like those childhood sketches. Which is probably why the guilt crept in. It started with a phone call. Dad had fallen on a cash job he never should have taken, shattered hip. They needed a place to recover. "Just a few weeks, honey. You've got all those bedrooms going to waste." The hook sank deep, They were still my parents, I said yes. Famous last words, weeks became months, months hardened into years. My sanctuary turned into a boarding house where I paid all expenses and still got graded daily on my failures as a daughter. It started small, Mom rearranging my bookshelves so they made sense. Dad claiming the garage for tools he couldn't lift. Suggestions about paint colors became declarations. We really should update this bathroom, it's so 1920s. I like 1920s, I said. Well, we live here too, she replied, as if that had ever been the agreement. Neighbors started hearing our house and our daughter who works too much. Mom's book club met in my living room. My design awards vanished from the mantel, replaced by porcelain cherubs. Grandma Marjorie's watercolors came down for framed prints of lighthouses purchased at TJ Maxx. I became a ghost under my own roof. Year 2 brought the money talk. You know, kiddo, Dad said one night watching me pay bills, it's not wise keeping everything tied up in one asset. My money isn't tied up, I answered without looking up. I have diversified investments. Still, rates are low. Refinance, pull out some equity. You never know when family might need help. The family needing help turned out to be 40 grand in secret credit card debt and Dad's medical bills they'd never planned for. I started staying late at the office. Colleagues thought I was angling for partner. Really, I just wanted to breathe without someone telling me my life choices were unattractive to men. The final crack came on an ordinary Thursday. I was buried in deadlines when I noticed a drip under the kitchen sink. I called Dad to let the plumber in. Yeah, I'm here, he sighed, like existing in my house was a chore. Where else would I be? After I hung up, or thought I did, I heard Mom in the background. Tell her we need to talk about pulling equity. Later, Dad muttered. Then the shuffling stopped. The line stayed open. I should have hung up. Instead, I listened. She's never gonna agree to refinance, Dad said. We'll wear her down, we always do. Remember when she didn't want us moving in? This is bigger money, Walter. We're drowning. She owes us, we raised her. Tolerated her, Dad corrected. Big difference. She was a burden from the day she was born, too sensitive, too brainy, always acting better than us. Now she can pay for the privilege. We should have contested the will. Marjorie lawyered up good. But Rachel's soft. Guilty, she'll cave, and if she doesn't, a dark chuckle, hell, I'd sell this place out from under her if I could. Cash out, move to Florida, let her figure out rent. You can't sell what ain't yours. Details. She's our retirement plan, always has been. The line went dead. I sat frozen at my desk until the cleaning crew arrived. A burden, retirement plan, those two words looped in my head while the city lights blinked on outside my window. I stayed until dawn, researching California property law, tenant rights, quiet title sales, eviction timelines. By the time the sun rose over the harbor, I had a blueprint colder and cleaner than any I'd ever drawn for a client. They wanted to sell my house behind my back. I'd sell it right in front of their faces. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. Mom raised an eyebrow when she found me at the kitchen island. You're home. Are you dying? Just taking a personal day, I said sweetly. By the way, are you and Dad still daydreaming about Spain? Her eyes sharpened like a hawk spotting a mouse. We've talked about it, but money. I want to send you. 2 weeks, everything paid, early Christmas gift. I have never seen suspicion melt into greed so fast. While Mom bragged to her book club harpies, I made my own calls. First to Patricia Chen, real estate attorney with zero ties to Ellingport. You want to sell the house while your parents are in another country and they've lived there rent-free for 2 years. Correct. Completely legal, morally gray. But legal, gray works. Next to Genevieve Lang, luxury agent 3 towns over who specialized in discreet, high-end sales. Oceanfront, shingle style, move-in ready. I'll have it under contract in 10 days. The following 2 weeks were an Oscar-worthy performance. I helped them pack, printed boarding passes, drove them to the airport, hugged Mom goodbye while she whispered, "Maybe you're not as selfish as we thought." Even her gratitude came with venom. The second their plane left the tarmac, I became a different woman. I hired professional packers, photographed and inventoried every single item. Mom's angel collection, Dad's rusty tools, the mismatched towels they'd bought with my credit card. Everything went into climate-controlled storage back in their old zip code, 4 months prepaid, plus a $5,000 check and a notarized letter. Genevieve staged the house like a magazine spread. Nathan Roth, a tech millionaire relocating from Chicago, walked onto the deck, watched one sunset, and said, "We'll take it." Cash offer. No contingencies. Closing scheduled 2 days after my parents' return flight. I signed the papers without a tremor. handed over the keys to Grandma's house without a tear, and walked away a millionaire with no regrets. I rented a sleek one-bedroom downtown, smaller, modern mine. New number, new locks, mail forwarding. Then I waited. They landed Tuesday night. I watched the little plane icon cross the ocean from my new balcony, wine in hand, Grandma's photo smiling beside me. The first call came at 9:47 p.m. I let it ring. Then the texts, confusion, panic, fury. I'd left a note on the empty mailbox in their handwriting style. Dear Walter and Helen, the burden has entered a new tax bracket. Memories are all that's left here. Rachel, the legal threats began day 3, some cut-rate lawyer firing off words like elder abuse and constructive eviction. Patricia shut them down in one email and a bill they couldn't pay. They found me a week later at Harbor Brew Cafe, thanks to Dad's old union buddy who mentioned seeing me. I walked in 15 minutes late, set my phone on the table. This conversation is recorded. If that's a problem, I leave now. They stayed. How could you do this to your own parents? Mom started, tears on demand. October 15th, I cut in. Dad but dialed me after the plumber call. I heard every word. Burden. Retirement plan. Sell the house out from under me. Ring any bells? The color drained from their faces. You were spying, Mom shrieked. You were conspiring to steal my inheritance, I replied. I think we're even. We raised you, Dad roared. You tolerated me, I said, echoing his own words. There's a difference. I slid the folder across the table. Deed in my name, only 2 years of property tax receipts, the original temporary stay agreement they'd signed, storage unit receipt, inventory photos, copy of the $5,000 check. You have everything you brought plus a cushion. Any obligation I ever imagined I owed is fulfilled. Dad tried one last grenade. You'll die old and alone. I'd rather die alone than live as your ATM, I answered. I stood, left the copies, and walked out into the salt wind without looking back. That night I sat on my new balcony, smaller view, bigger life, answering congratulatory emails about my promotion to partner track while Marcus texted about dinner tomorrow. Somewhere across town, my parents were probably unpacking boxes in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like someone else's cats, raging at the daughter who finally stopped paying for their mistakes. I raised a glass to the dark ocean. The burden had officially been lifted.